This RNC, TNC, Trump National Convention just doesn't disappoint if you're looking for drama.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Of course, if you're looking for, I don't know, a credible convention, I guess you're going to have to wait till next week. It might end up being boring, too, with the Democrats. But holy cow. I mean, what happened last night was just, well, it was interesting. Welcome in. Nice to have you. And again, if you're watching the program at 7:30, the Trump speech is yet to come. If you're watching at midnight, like so many of you do, a lot of people watch at 7:30, of course, we'll have to catch up on that. Tomorrow night's program, which, don't tell anybody, we record on Thursday afternoons as well. Tim White and Dan McGowan will cover some of these local developments on issues happening here in our own backyard that we haven't been able to pay attention to because of the RNC discussion. I am really pleased to have the former chairman of the Republican National, I just promoted him, the Republican State Committee, the GOP here in the state, Mark Zaccaria, who's run for some pretty high offices. I've always respected Mark's acumen. And so I actually invited him in for perspective on the convention tonight. He's also running in District 32 as a state representative against Bob Craven, a Democratic incumbent. And you got to give Mark a real hard look. You're going to give him a look in about a minute when you are introduced to him. But here's a rundown from what happened on Wednesday night.
Day 3 of the RNC was supposed to be all about Vice Presidential nominee Mike Pence.
I accept your nomination to run and serve as Vice President.
But the Indiana governor's moment became overshadowed by bad blood between Donald Trump and former rival Ted Cruz.
Stand and speak and vote your conscience. Vote for candidates up and down the ticket who you trust.
The Texas senator was enthusiastically booed during his speech for failing to endorse the billionaire.
God bless the United States.
The jeers quickly turned to cheers as Trump entered the arena. He later brushed off the non-endorsement as no big deal via Twitter, saying, "I saw his speech 2 hours early, but let him speak anyway." Cruz's last stand came just one day before Trump takes center stage here in Cleveland tonight. Ivanka Trump is expected to address unity tonight before her father formally accepts the GOP presidential nomination.
Crazy stuff. Welcome, old friend. How are you?
I'm well.
Gut check.
Credible convention. People are coming together and they're duking it out. I mean, you knew with 17 people there to start, there was going to be some regular old-fashioned Republican Donnybrook, and it's come all the way to the end. Half of the people are saying that Mr. Cruz has stepped on the TNC, and the other half are saying he's stayed true to his spirit and his goals, his aims, his high, lofty conservative precepts. They're probably both right. The fact of the matter is that I think in the long run, it doesn't really matter much as to what Mr. Cruz says about Mr. Trump. Mike Pence is a wonderful guy.
Who's he?
He's running for vice president.
Really?
But your question is actually well put, because ultimately this is going to be about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and all the rest of this stuff is going to be window dressing to that battle of the Titans.
All right, the first headline we have on this, on the Cruz controversy is certainly, I don't know. Mark has always been pretty level-headed, and he's a devout Republican here, so keep all of that in mind. And I say that with respect. The notion that the Ted Cruz situation now dominates the news doesn't bother you?
I think it bothers me because we could be talking about how we should govern ourselves in the next 4 years, but it's also the way the world works. I mean, we get distracted by shiny objects all the time. How we should govern ourselves in the next 4 years is boring but important, and people don't like that. It doesn't make good TV. So here we are talking about Cruz.
All right. Well, let's go back on a little bit of the history between Donald and Cruz with this report.
Stand and speak and vote your conscience.
The boos that carried Texas Senator Ted Cruz off the stage Wednesday night echoed one of the most bruising primary fights in modern political history. Ted Cruz's relationship with Donald Trump started out cordially.
I like Donald Trump. He's bold, he's brash.
Somewhere along the way, that tone changed.
If I were in my car and getting ready to reverse and saw Donald in the backup camera, I'm not confident which pedal I put.
But Trump hit the accelerator during the primary season, coining this infamous political catchphrase.
It's L-Y-I-N apostrophe, Lion Ted, the Bible held high. He puts it down and then he lies.
This man is a pathological liar. He lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth.
The fight spilled into the debates.
That is not what you said in the op-ed.
Donald, please, I know it's hard not to interrupt.
But it's not what you said in the op-ed.
Breathe.
Lion
breathe,
Ted.
Breathe.
This guy will say anything. Nasty guy. Now I know why he doesn't have one endorsement from any of his colleagues.
Home turf wasn't off limits either.
You know, I think most people know exactly what New York values are. Not a lot of conservatives come out of Manhattan. I'm just saying.
Trump even raised questions about Cruz's Canadian birthplace.
Who the hell knows if you can even serve in office?
And Trump breathed life into a National Enquirer report that suggested Cruz's father was possibly linked to John F. Kennedy's assassin.
His father was with Lee Harvey Oswald prior to Oswald's being, shot.
Even spouses were drawn into the mudslinging, with Trump retweeting an unflattering picture of Heidi Cruz side by side with Melania Trump.
You mess with my wife, you mess with my kids, that'll do it every time. Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone.
You know, I'm not sure, Mark, what either party was thinking here, meaning either one of these two guys, other than Ted Cruz, who this morning tried to explain, look, I did this because I thought I had to. I proffered he was getting no formal endorsement. I congratulated him on the win. What did he expect? Does Donald Trump, do you think, have some kind of perverse love for anguish? Or is it another one of these things where they just miscalculated?
I guess
I mean, they read the speech.
I understand. They read the speech a couple hours before game time, so it was a little bit too late to just scratch him. The fact is that...
but he was told 3 days before that he wasn't going to get an endorsement.
I understand, and I think he had to have known that going in, because
Sure.
these two guys, over the course of the whole primary season, ratcheted up, and they were really the last two standing when you come right down to it. The fact is that neither one of them wanted to say uncle, and neither one of them did until they were both very blooded and had created for us a primary season that was never envisioned by the founders of our republic.
Right.
This was.
When you say that, but you open up the show by going, "Hey, good old-fashioned,
well, okay,
Republican convention."
But that's what happens. You know, that has happened before. If you'll recall, 4 years ago, the Republican convention started off with a huge Donnybrook by the Ron Paul delegates at that time because of a procedural parliamentary move there too.
Were you under the end table watching this last night? I mean, were you in a fetal position like I was, thinking, oh my gosh, what now?
Well, look, there are two groups of voters that are never going to change their minds. There are the people that are going to vote for Trump no matter what happens and no matter what he says. There are the people that are going to vote for Hillary no matter what she says, no matter what happens. The people in the middle, which may represent only 8, 9, 10% of the total electorate, are the ones that are going to decide this election.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the big takeaway from this convention is going to be tonight's speech for Trump.
If he can. It'll be interesting to see if he stays away from the 24 hours, previous in this news cycle. I mean, Ted Cruz doubled down this morning. I'm sure you saw it. Here's part of his explanation as to why he just couldn't get his bad self to endorse Donald Trump.
When I stood on that debate stage, and they asked every candidate there, if you don't win, will you support the nominee? I raised my hand, and I raised my hand enthusiastically, with full intention of doing exactly that. And I'll tell you the day that pledge was abrogated. The day that was abrogated was the day this became personal. And as I said at the time, and I'm not going to get into criticizing or attacking Donald Trump, but I'll just give you this response. I am not in the habit of supporting people who attack my wife and attack my father. And that pledge was not a blanket commitment that if you go and slander and attack Heidi, that I'm going to nonetheless come like a servile puppy dog and say thank you very much for maligning my wife and maligning my father.
Dan, he's either personally offended and cut to the quick that somebody would have said something about his wife and his father, or he's sticking a pin into Donald Trump, hoping to get the response that you were concerned with in tonight's speech.
I don't know why it's either or. I think it's a combination of both.
It could be both.
I'm a little surprised that you kind of play act through the notion that his family was semi-tortured here by Donald Trump for this whole thing.
Well, I'm not play acting. I'm just saying that these
it's almost
two
like
guys.
You don't buy it, that there's an excuse being offered there. I don't think so. I think it's real.
It may be, but boy, you got to have a thick skin in politics, and things were ratcheting up the entire 6 months of the primary season. It was headed in that direction, and neither one of them is going to stop and stand down and say, "All right, let's do this for the country."
Yeah,
so
I'm sure his
that's
response would be
unfortunate.
his thick skin, not his wife's or his dad's, but that's kind of the way the whole thing goes. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about what happened kind of off the sidelines, the New York Times story, and Donald Trump's theories now on NATO, the Middle East, and beyond. In the meantime, before we do that, I just want to mention to you that Bruno & Company auctioneers have a big weekend coming up. In fact, tomorrow noon to 5, a preview party for their antiques, fine arts, jewelry, and Asian auction. Over 500 quality estate fresh lots are being offered. Pardon me for taking a look at some good notes here. If you're looking for antiques and fine arts for upcoming auctions, they can handle any entire house contents, collection, or single pieces, and they offer in-house verbal evaluations for high-end antiques, right down broom swept and estate cleanouts, all of that. So they got a whole lot going on. Don't forget, tomorrow and Saturday, take a look at the website and check out the details. We'll be right back.
We have but one choice, and that man is ready. This team is ready. Our party is ready. And when we elect Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, together, we will make America great again.
You know, I got to tell you, by the time we got to Mike Pence last night, it was like a rub of the belly. You know, it's like, oh, boy, that felt good. A guy who I think is an asset to Donald Trump right
Absolutely.
now. I mean, he's got the right target audience. His presentation was self-deprecating. It was broad. It was spot on issues. It was tough, yet I hate to say this. It was a typically well articulated, here I am, get to know me presentation.
Not Pence's first rodeo. I think the thing that I like most about the Pence choice is that it signals that what Trump is doing is preparing to govern. He didn't pick somebody that would help him win the presidency. He picked somebody that would help him be president. And now, whether or not he's premature in thinking, no.
You're
Pence,
a conservative guy, and there are a lot of
Pence will
people. There are a lot of conservatives, and we've had them here, who say they still are never Trumpers because this is a phony conservative that we're talking about.
Maybe he's a phony conservative, but if he gets to be president, he's going to have relations with the Congress. We saw what happened currently with a president that has no relations with Congress. Right. Pence is the guy that can be that bridge, and that's where he's going to be valuable because of the 12 years that he spent in the House and how he knows how things work on the Hill.
Headlines galore here. We've got a whole bunch of them from the week. Donald Trump sets conditions for defending NATO allies against attack, And it was suggested that while Mike Pence is talking about certain aspects of foreign policy, Donald Trump is actually undercutting it with his interview with newspapers. Specifically, here's some excerpts. By the way, we know that Pence was booed. I'm sorry, that Cruz was booed and Pence kind of stuck in there. It's a bonus headline for you. There's no guarantee that we'll have peace in Korea. I don't want to be specific about ISIS because I really don't know what I'm planning. I do have ideas, very strong ideas, but I'm pretty much empty at this point. And then this narrative on NATO, I'm not going to read the entire thing. You folks ought to, but as you're gazing at the television screen and take a look at the money issues that he's pointing to, I understand that he's been fairly consistent about the notion that he wants people in NATO to pony up and do their fair share. But Article 5 says, you know what? If someone goes down in NATO, if we had attacked, say Russia attacked somebody in NATO, we're right there no matter if they have a overdue bill. You got Mike Pence more or less saying, we'll stay with our allies, and you got this nonsense. This is the message that ought to worry everybody.
It ought to for a couple of reasons. First of all, wars start when the enemy starts them, and they don't end until the enemy says uncle, okay? And so that's something that Mr. Trump may have to learn. The other thing is that look what happened when Putin got emboldened in the Crimea by inaction there. Now, admittedly, Ukraine was not a member of NATO. They were in the process of trying to see whether they'd join or not. But if all of a sudden Putin takes this as a signal from Trump that he can have Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, yeah, we're going to have a real big problem, because that will be something that we do have to react to.
You voting for this guy?
Look, there are two choices for each of us. We can either have Trump and the wild card that he is, or we can have Hillary, which is a known quantity. Now, I understand I'm a partisan, I have a biased position over here, but I think that there have to be many Democrats who are concerned about Hillary.
We got an interesting dynamic. Jill Stein was in town, Green Party candidate, yesterday. The second piece there, if you will, Kev, roll this.
The American people are entitled to hear from the candidates who could actually win the election. You know, we have a right to vote as citizens, and we also have a right to know who we can vote for. And both the Libertarians and the Greens, both Gary Johnson and my campaign, are going to be on the ballot for just about every voter out there. So voters deserve to know who their choices are, and that should be the determining factor. Right now, this debate commission, the Commission on Presidential Debates, it sounds very official, but it's actually just the Democratic and Republican parties that are free to set whatever rule they want in order to silence political opposition.
The Green Party and the Libertarian Party combined would have the 15% that the debate commission would call for national television participation. Of course, they can't merge by logistics.
Let's stipulate
no Libertarian or Green for you. You're not matched up with the Green Party ideologically.
Well, no, I am a libertarian by nature, but the best way to be a libertarian and get something done in government is to do it as a Republican. Now, you know, I could stipulate for the case of this argument that either Ms. Stein or Gary Johnson are better candidates than either Trump or Clinton. But the next president of the United States is going to be one of those two. It's going to be either Trump or Clinton. And the point in which Ms. Stein could have had an impact was a year ago, not now. So, unfortunately, much as my heart goes out to her and I would love to hear more about her, the practical reality is that everyone in America got two choices in November.
When we come back, the former chair of the state party reflecting on the current chair's little blurb a couple of nights ago, and we might get his Rosemary sense. Stay with us.
Unfortunately, government is not working in Rhode Island for the people, as the state is run by a corrupt Democrat political machine for the last 80 years. In our state, we are constantly ranked near the bottom, recently ranked 50th worst in terms of our business-friendly climate. Democratic leadership in our state has been rampant with corruption, lack of transparency, and unethical conduct, which makes it no surprise that the Democratic presidential nominee is supported by each and every one of Rhode Island State Democratic leadership. It should therefore come as no surprise that Rhode Island delivered, sorry Jersey, the largest margin of victory in a three-way race, with the most amount of votes cast in the history of a Republican primary, with over 64% for Donald J. Trump.
You're a former party chairman. What was your take?
Prophets are never respected in their own homelands. I mean, the fact of the matter is, he said the truth. Did you see last week what the Rhode Island Foundation did with the video where they had the little kids reading these obscene...
Like, be quiet. If you don't have anything nice to say.
If you can't say anything nice, just shut up, please. Well, if you can't do anything nice, how can we say anything nice? This is what's going on in Rhode Island. Sorry. And Brandon said it. And he said it out loud and on national TV.
I thought it was a well choreographed cry for help, and a way to commiserate with Republicans, saying, "Hey, man, you know, this is almost our cocktail hour, get out of jail free card for 4 days, so we can actually feel what it's like to be around fellow Republicans." It's actually created more conversation, of course, here than it has anywhere else. The rest of the country went, oh, that was kind of interesting. I don't think the rest of the country said, oh, I'm never going to Misquamicut, right? Or,
No.
geez, I think they got that Dill's lemonade, now it's sour in my mouth. The Democratic Chairman, Joe McNamara, had to have a baby over this, and the governor thinks it's, you know, it undercuts her, you know, her efforts to promote tourism. Maybe she ought to get a tourism act together before she worries
The governor
about this.
and the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate and Mr. McNamara could fix this in the next session by starting to do some real things to make our economy really grow. And they're not going to. So we're going to keep doing this.
Next session, great segue.
There you go.
You've run for Congress how many times?
Twice for the Congress, stepped in 14 for the Senate, and ran several times for the town council in North Kingstown.
And you know, all these years we've known each other, you and I have had this funny dynamic where I say, for God's sake, this guy is so electable, but you never really have the dough and the organizational strength to compete in the bigger races. You acknowledge that's been our rap.
Oh,
you and me
sure,
back
sure,
and forth,
sure,
right?
sure.
I mean, just the acumen that you show in this entire program and all our conversations ought to prove to a lot of people out there that this is a big-time thinker and a sophisticated guy in politics. However, running for state rep, where I think you could be incredibly effective and have a tremendous effect on the delegation from both a leadership and, you know, you'll be a rookie, but you'll be a veteran in the game. So congratulations for running against Representative Craven. Tell me what you want to do. I'm going to have you back, okay, on just the local issues after we get past
But
this.
first of all, this is a race I can win because I can do it myself at the doorsteps of District 32.
What, 10, 15, 20 grand raise, that kind of thing?
Yep,
Yeah.
and then, so that means some TV at the end, that means a couple of mailings, and it means me going to every door in the district twice. And looking people in the eye and saying, here are your two choices. You can have somebody that represents the leadership, or you can have somebody that represents you. What's your pleasure?
And specifically, if I asked you at that doorstep, give me the bullet point on the one or two big issues in 60 seconds, it would be.
What do you hate most about the last session? Truck tolls. We didn't need them, we didn't want them, but we got them because they meant something to the leadership. The leadership, including Mr. Craven, got behind this thing, and there it is. Now we're going to spend $40 million plus on putting these things up, and we're going to get sued the day we start to use them because it's got to go to all cars and trucks and everybody. And they're going to say, oh, well, we never meant it, but we have to do it now because we spent all this money. This is emblematic of everything that's going to happen. Look in November at the $20 million bond for the Port of Providence. That is 38 studios all over again. It's a way for somebody to feed at the trough. It's nowhere near enough money to do what Provport says. But you know what? Provport only has one employee anyways, so they'll figure something out. This is emblematic of things being forced down our throats. Do you wish to have that continue?
And now I close the door. And I say, you know what? Pretty sharp guy. Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
Mark Zaccaria. He'll be back on more issues. Mr. Craven can come in and debate them if you like. Ooh, final word when we come back. I'd watch out for Zaccaria in District 35. We'll have him back, and I'm serious. We should have a debate with his incumbent opponent. Tim White and Dan McGowan in tomorrow night to catch up on some really provocative things happening here locally. We'll catch up on the Thursday night presentation at the RNC TNC on Monday when Joe Trillo and hopefully Chairman Bell join us on Monday evening. I'll see you on the radio tomorrow at 3 o'clock on WPRO. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.